All right, how about a little bit of sexy SIG 365 on it today with all of the trimmings. So the 365 series has been one of the most popular selling pistols over the past few years, outselling even Glock. And with that amount of actual factory purchases is always going to follow with a slew of aftermarket support for whichever platform is that popular at that point in time. So I figured why not do something with a couple of the big names out there when it comes to the 365 specifically, between FDEZ Works and Icarus Precision when it comes to the grip modules. This is kind of what SIG did with their AXG Legion series when it comes to the metal grip and the different slides and stuff like that. But this one obviously looks quite a bit different, and it's basically the version on steroids between the FDEZ slide up here, the Icarus grip module with those G10 grips, and all of that port work. And when I say port and comp work, I mean like hashtag all the ports. So you've not only got those 4 circular ports, but a massive chunk port on the end of that thing. So you can probably guess already, it's gonna run pretty flat. And with all of that ports, the question's always gonna be, is it actually going to run on a factory recoil spring? And the next big question would be, is it going to run on all different types and grain weights of ammunition, which we are going to address specifically in just a minute. Before we get into the details of each piece, what exact parts are you going to need for this thing? So depending on where you start, you can start with nothing, or you can have like a 365, a 365 XL, or a 365X Macro. Now, you're gonna need that factory fire control unit. You'll want the slide internal. So if you have any of the 365 series, you're gonna be able to use those in there. You will need the 365 XL spring. And then of course, depending on if you want that slide and that specific barrel and that specific grip module that I'm showing today, those would be in addition to those factory parts. FDEZ also has a guide rod spring tuning kit. So if you wanna run spicier or lower power ammunition, you can kind of dial that in. But me personally, I like to stick with the factory guide rod and spring. And we're gonna talk about that more in just a minute. If you guys are looking to pick up some kit to up your game out there on the range, make sure you check out HRT Tactical. They've been a friend of the channel for a couple of years now. I use their kit both in my personal and my professional life. It's solid gear, whether you need a plate carrier, a chest rig, or some additional pouches, even a full-on belt system that is super light. Check out HRT. Something else good you might wanna check out, if you are out there on the range and you're not wearing ballistic eye protection, you probably should look into some. I've been wearing the shell shock stuff a lot recently due to a pretty recent scare on the range where I caught some spall to the face, which can happen out there depending on what's going on. But I pretty much moved to only wearing mil-spec kind of rated ballistic eye protection out there. And these ones are actually good enough looking to where you can wear them with your normal clothes out there in public and not look like the dude that just left the range. They've also got some pretty slick ear pro. They come with those like gel inserts over your ears. They sound good, and overall it's pretty affordable, especially as compared to other good looking and, you know, ballistic rated eye pro out there on the market. And I'll have a link for that stuff down below. As far as the specific breakdown of each part here, again, it's the FDEZ Works XL slide with the compensators and the port in it. That's gonna give you pretty much everything you can want as far as looks and performance. You're gonna get rear serrations with massive deep cocking serration ledge on the back, plenty of really top-notch machine work, windows. The front serrations will also have another integrated cocking ledge up front should you work the pistol from the front of the slide. There's gonna be a long port across the top of the slide and then that chunk port opening out in the front. The front sight is located just behind the big chunk port at the end of the barrel. Internally, it takes basic SIG parts from your current system or a completion kit you can buy separately from SIG or someone else. The barrel on this one is from FDEZ as well, with 4 circular ports that get progressively larger towards the front, and it's finished off with a big chunk port on the end. There are several different color variations out there. This one is the high polished DLC, and it's the most clean looking, at least in my opinion. Downstairs is the Icarus AXG Macro grip module with G10 grip panels in it. And this frame gives you all of the grip, all the angles and ergonomics, undercuts, and the looks that you could possibly want in a SIG 365 grip module. And I'm pretty sure most of you can realize by the things that we're looking at here and talking about that none of this is going to be wallet friendly, okay? This is something you've really got to want to do. But if you're interested in doing your own research on anything that you see here today, I'll have a build list link down below so you can check each thing out, do a little bit of reading. And for those of you brave souls out there watching this in your employer's break room, casting it to the TV, I'll put the QR code for you right up here. Now, the ammunition I ran, and did we have any problems? So the vast majority of the rounds I fired out that day were 124 grain Badlands munitions. They're my boys out here in Arizona. They've got very high quality control and consistency, and it's about the only range ammunition that I haven't had problems with over the past 2 years. But I did try some other types. So 124 grain and up is where I'm gonna say you probably wanna stick when it comes to something this aggressive with the port work. And all of that ammunition cost was covered by Brownells. They've been a huge structure of support here for the channel. They've been my go-to for a great many years, and they do a lot to help not only me, but a bunch of other people out there in the industry. Now, keeping in mind that I wanted to stick with the factory 365 XL recoil spring and guide rod here, this thing loves 124 grain, and that is for more than one reason. So when I did use some 115 grain, I had 3 stovepipes or failure to extract all the way out right, so it looks like a little stovepipe coming out of your slide, and I'll roll those in so you can see them. Now, I'm assuming that when you use the lighter recoil springs, that problem will go away, because generally that's how these things work. When you get ports and all the chunk ports and stuff going on here, you usually need to lighten the spring up just a tiny bit sometimes. However, I like to stick with the factory stuff, and generally when I'm running things out there, even if it's my practice ball munitions, it's 124 grain. The other thing that I did notice when it came to 115 grain is that the accuracy was kind of wild. And by wild, I mean not good, I mean like wildly bad. So the 124 grain and the 147 grain fat bastards from Badlands were like dead on in my testing, like whether I zeroed and it was just dead on out to 25, a little bit beyond. But with the 115 grain, I found that on a 2/3 IBZIC plate, right? Like that C-zone steel, at 25 yards, like more than half of the rounds were not impacting the steel. Whether I was shooting fast or slow, like it just didn't make a difference. Like I tried a couple of different brands. This thing does not like 115. I'm assuming that has to do with like all of the pressures and everything coming out of those ports, and the 115 grain just didn't like it. But the 124 and the 147 did just fine. So not only for spring purposes, but it just seems to be that aggressive ports like this, at least on this thing, didn't like 115 grain at all, no matter who the manufacturer was. Now, if any of you out there have experienced that same thing where 115 grain was all over the place and 124 grain or up, whether it was just ball or self-protection, kind of higher plus P loads, definitely let us all know in the comments, because I've only seen that a few times out there, but I've never seen it like this kind of crazy deviation style. But all rest of the about 350-ish rounds that I had to spend that day on this thing, which is 124 and 147 grain from Badlands, it all ran 100% reliably, and I got the accuracy I would expect out of a pistol this size. I know some people may freak out about that, but anytime you do crazy things like big old circular and chunk ports like that, you might have to tune something if you're not using the best of quality ammunition, or go with a lighter spring. It's kind of an easy choice for me. I'll choose a factory spring and just run really good 124 grain or better ammunition, because the cost between a 124 grain practice ball ammunition from a reputable manufacturer and a 115 grain is pretty negligible. But if you are the one that consistently likes to use Bubba Down by the River reloads, you might not have the best results. So just get the good ammo. Now, I know somebody's gonna ask me to compare this and all that stuff to this right here, the Radian Ramjet Afterburner setup. Now, here's what I'm going to say about that. Knowing Radian, and you have to understand that I work for Radian, so I'm gonna keep this very short. This is more likely to give you consistent function with all ammunition types, even some cheaper stuff, 115 grain in that, because of how Radian does their testing with these things. So when Radian tests their compensators out, they not only limp wrist it with one hand, but they use like the cheapest basic ammunition they can, because they want these things to function reliably for any ammunition type and any user, no matter their grip. When it comes to something super aggressive like the FDEZ, you might have a little bit of tuning to do. Now, is one better than the other? I'm gonna completely leave that up to you guys as you watch videos on the Ramjet Afterburners I put up and this video here, and you can compare the slow motion and make your own decision, because they're very different. And again, I work for Radian. I love their stuff. I loved it long before I worked for them, but I don't want to have my bias feed into either of these things when it comes to you guys making a decision. Now, is the juice worth the squeeze? Because I know there's already people in the comments saying it's not worth it. Now, let's take this apart bit by bit, because if you think you're getting PSA budget here, you are about to be very sore in like 5 seconds. Because If you want this slide package, the barrel, the slide, the internals, the sights, the OptiCut and everything, you're looking at about 800 galactic notes right there. If you want that Icarus lower with the G10 inserts, that's about an additional 400. And if you don't have any of the parts here and you need to buy that fire control unit, it can be had on its own for about an additional 350. So these are things that you have to really want. This isn't buy it on a whim budget, kind of try it out and maybe you don't like it kind of thing. You've got to have a desire for not only the curb appeal, the looks, but the performance and possibly some of the tuning that may come with something to this extent. But I'm also the guy that has spent far too much money over the years on classic cars, lift kits for my trucks, boats, and all that stuff. And I know a ton of you out there are just like me because I constantly get pictures from you guys, whether it's on your new bass boat or your new truck or your new slammed hot rod or your square body or whatever. And I love that stuff. I love the fact that you're out there being able to live the dream. So keep that stuff coming. But be aware, there's always a cost factor. And some people may still say it is not worth it, but remember, just because you can't afford it or don't have the disposable income, doesn't mean somebody doesn't have that and it may be worth it to them. I can't afford a Ferrari. That doesn't mean it's not worth it. It just means I can't afford it and I'm okay with that. But the galactic notes go quick when you build something like this. So I'm curious to know what your limit is on a custom rig, or if you're just like, nope, I'm a stock kind of guy and I don't need anything else, because it seems to be it's like 50-50 right now. Some people just want to go full crazy and other people don't even want to like polish internals or spend 10 bucks on a trigger shoe. It's pretty crazy that it deviates that hard from one side to the other. Make sure you get subbed up to the channel. That parts list will be linked down below. The QR code will be up here. And remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.